When 30-year-old tech millionaire Evan Hale walked into that small neighborhood restaurant, he expected nothing more than a routine business lunch. But fate had other plans. Sitting in a corner booth was the woman who had once been his everything, his ex-wife Maya, now raising two beautiful 4-year-old twins who bore his unmistakable grey-green eyes and that signature dimple he'd inherited from his late mother. The secret she'd kept for 4 years was about to shatter both their worlds, because Maya had tried to tell him about the pregnancy, but pride and fear had built walls between them that seemed impossible to tear down. Now, as those innocent children looked up at the stranger their mother once loved, Evan faced the most important choice of his life. Would he fight for the family he never knew he had, or would his past mistakes cost him everything that truly mattered? This is a story about second chances, the courage to choose love over pride, and the transformative power of showing up when it matters most. If you're watching this incredible journey unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me what city you're calling home tonight. The afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of Dell's family grill, casting golden patches across the worn wooden tables. The lunch rush was winding down, and the familiar sounds of clinking dishes and quiet conversation filled the cozy restaurant. Maya Carter moved between tables with practiced ease, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, a gentle smile lighting up her face as she checked on the last few customers. At 30, Evan Hale had built his tech services company from nothing. His success showed in his confident stride and the expensive watch on his wrist, but today, something felt different. He'd arranged to meet a potential client at Dell's, a recommendation from a friend who insisted their comfort food was unmatched. As he pushed through the glass door, the bell above chimed softly. The restaurant felt like stepping back in time. Checkered tablecloths, mismatched chairs that somehow worked together, and the scent of fresh bread and simmering soup. Evan scanned the room for his client, then froze. There, at a corner booth, sat a woman he'd never expected to see again, Maya. His ex-wife looked up from cutting a sandwich into small pieces, her movements careful and practiced. The years had been kind to her. She looked radiant, her brown skin glowing in the afternoon light. But it wasn't just Maya that made his breath catch. 2 small children sat across from her in the booth. A boy and a girl, maybe 4 years old, sharing a plate of French fries and giggling over some private joke. The little girl had pigtails tied with purple ribbons, while the boy's hair was cut short and neat. They were beautiful children, clearly well cared for and loved. And they both had his eyes. Not just similar eyes, his exact eyes. The same unusual grey-green color that people always commented on. The same shape, the same long lashes. The little boy even had the distinctive dimple in his left cheek that Evan had inherited from his mother. Maya must have felt his stare because she looked up. Their eyes met across the restaurant, and he watched her face go through a dozen emotions in seconds: surprise, fear, something that might have been sadness, and then a careful blankness that he remembered too well. His phone buzzed. A text from his client. "Sorry, family emergency. Rain check?" Evan barely glanced at the message. His feet carried him forward without his permission, weaving between tables until he stood beside Maya's booth. Up close, the resemblance was even stronger. The little girl, she had Maya's smile but his nose. The boy was quieter, watching Evan with curious eyes that were like looking in a mirror. "Maya." His voice came out rougher than he'd intended. "Evan." She set down the knife she'd been using to cut sandwiches. Her hands were steady, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "This is unexpected." The children looked between the adults, sensing something important was happening but not understanding what. "Mama, who's that?" the little girl asked, her voice sweet and clear. Maya's jaw tightened slightly. This is Evan, an old friend." Friend. The word stung more than it should have. "Hi," Evan said softly, crouching down to be at their eye level. "What are your names?" "I'm Naya," the girl said proudly. "And that's my brother Noah. He doesn't talk much to strangers, but he's really funny when you get to know him." Noah gave a small wave, then buried his face against Maya's arm with a shy giggle. "Nice to meet you both." Evan's voice was gentle, but inside his mind was racing. 4 years old. Maya had been pregnant when they divorced, but she'd never told him. Had she even known? "We should probably finish lunch," Maya said carefully. "The kids have quiet time after this." "Of course." Evan straightened, his legs feeling unsteady. Maybe we could talk sometime, when it's convenient for you. Maya was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she gave a small nod. "Email me," she said quietly. "Same address." "But Evan?" She looked directly at him, and her voice carried a warning. "No surprises, not with them involved." He nodded, understanding completely. These children, his children, if his racing heart was right, they came first. They had to. "No surprises," he agreed. Naya was watching their conversation with bright, intelligent eyes. "Are you staying for dessert? Aunt Dell makes really good pie." "Not today, sweetheart." Evan's throat felt tight. "But maybe another time." He walked away on unsteady legs, past the other diners who had no idea his entire world had just shifted. Outside, the afternoon air felt thin and sharp in his lungs. He leaned against the brick wall beside the restaurant entrance, staring at his reflection in the window. Grey-green, eyes stared back at him, the same eyes he'd just seen in two small faces. His phone buzzed with notifications from work, but he couldn't focus on any of it. Instead, he found himself thinking about the careful way Maya had cut those sandwiches, how she'd automatically reached over to wipe a spot of ketchup from Noah's cheek, the way both children had leaned into her warmth like flowers turning toward the sun. She'd built a life without him, a beautiful, complete life with two children who were clearly the center of her universe. And if those children were his God, if they were his, then he'd missed 4 years. 4 years of first words and first steps, of bedtime stories and scraped knees and all the tiny moments that made up a childhood. Through the window, he could see Maya helping the children into their coats. Noah's sleeve was inside out, and she patiently fixed it while Naya bounced on her toes, eager to leave. They moved like a well-practiced team, Maya anticipating their needs before they even voiced them. When they emerged from the restaurant, Maya was holding both children's hands. Evan stepped back, not wanting to intrude on their routine, but Nia spotted him and waved enthusiastically. "Bye, Evan. It was nice meeting you." Noah peeked out from behind Maya's coat and gave another small wave. Maya met Evan's eyes briefly. "I'll check my email tonight," she said quietly. Then they were walking toward a modest sedan parked at the corner. Evan watched as Maya helped them into car seats in the back, her movements quick and efficient. She'd clearly done this routine thousands of times. As the car pulled away, Nia pressed her face to the window and waved again. Evan raised his hand in response, feeling like his heart might crack open right there on the sidewalk. That evening, Evan sat at his kitchen counter, staring at a blank email. His townhouse felt too quiet, too empty. He'd been proud of this space once, the sleek appliances, the minimalist decor, the expensive furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Now it just felt cold. How did you start a conversation like this? How did you ask if the children you'd just met were yours? How did you even begin to bridge 4 years of silence? He started typing several times, deleting each attempt. Too formal, too casual, too presumptuous. Finally, he settled on simple honesty. "Maya, seeing you today was a shock, but a good one. You look happy and healthy, and the children are beautiful. I'd like to talk when you're ready. I can work around your schedule. I know I have no right to ask questions after all this time, but I can't stop thinking about those eyes. Evan." He stared at the message for 10 more minutes before hitting send. Maya's reply came 2 hours later, after the children were presumably in bed. "Evan, yes, they're yours. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after our divorce was final. I tried to call, but your number was disconnected. I left messages at your office, but never heard back. I decided to handle it on my own. Noah and Naya are 4. They're good kids, smart, funny, kind. Their lives are stable and predictable, which is how I want to keep it. If you're serious about being in their lives, we need to go slow, very slow. They don't know you're their father, and I won't have them confused or hurt. We can meet somewhere neutral, somewhere public. I'll bring them, but this is a trial run. You follow my lead. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Riverside Park Playground. Don't be late. Maya." Evan read the message 3 times. They were his. He had children. 2 children, who didn't know he existed, who thought of him as a stranger their mother had randomly met at a restaurant. The weight of that hit him like a physical blow. 4 years. He'd missed 4 years of their lives because of disconnected phone numbers and missed messages. because he'd been so focused on building his business that he'd forgotten to maintain the basic connections that mattered. He thought about Maya's words, stable and predictable. She was protecting them, and he couldn't blame her for that. He'd walked away from their marriage when things got difficult. He'd chosen his pride over fighting for what they'd had. Why should she trust him with the most precious things in her world? But she was giving him a chance. A trial run, she'd called it. One chance to prove he'd changed, that he could be the kind of man worthy of those two bright faces and their mother's guarded trust. He set his phone down and went to his office, pulling up his calendar for the next day. 3 client calls, a team meeting, and a conference call with investors. All of it suddenly felt meaningless compared to a playground at 3 o'clock. The old Evan would have tried to reschedule the playground meeting to fit around work. The old Evan had always believed there would be time later for the important things, after the next deal was closed or the next milestone reached. But looking at Maya's careful message, remembering the way Noah had shyly waved goodbye and how Naya had asked about dessert, Evan knew there might not be a later. This could be his only chance to be part of something real, something that mattered more than profit margins or client satisfaction. He opened his laptop and began cancelling meetings. The next afternoon, Evan arrived at Riverside Park 15 minutes early. He'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on jeans and a simple blue button-down, approachable but not trying too hard. He found a bench with a clear view of the playground equipment and waited, his stomach tight with nerves. At exactly 3 o'clock, he spotted them walking across the grass. Maya wore a light jacket and carried a small backpack that probably held snacks and Band-Aids and all the other things mothers thought to bring. The children ran ahead of her toward the swings, their laughter carrying on the afternoon breeze. Evan stayed on the bench, remembering Maya's instructions to follow her lead. She settled on a bench about 20 feet away, close enough to supervise but giving him space to breathe. The children were already busy exploring Nia, heading straight for the monkey bars, while Noah climbed carefully up the ladder to the slide. After a few minutes, Maya caught his eye and nodded toward the playground equipment. Permission to approach. Evan walked over slowly, not wanting to startle them. Nia was hanging from the monkey bars, her face scrunched in concentration as she tried to swing to the next rung. "Those look tricky," he said conversationally. "They are," she puffed, then dropped to the ground with a soft thud. "But I'm getting better. Noah's scared of them, but that's okay. He likes the swings." Evan glanced over to where Noah was indeed sitting on a swing, gently pushing himself back and forth while watching them. "Want to try?" Naya asked, pointing at the monkey bars. Evan looked up at the bright yellow bars, clearly designed for much smaller hands than his. "I don't know if they'll hold me," Naya giggled. "You're silly. Of course they won't, but you could try the big kid stuff over there." She pointed to a section with pull-up bars and other fitness equipment. "Maybe later," Evan said. "Those swings look pretty good too." He followed her over to where Noah was still swinging gently. The little boy looked up when they approached, his gray-green eyes serious and thoughtful. "Hi, Noah," Evan said softly. "Maya said you like the swings." Noah nodded but didn't speak. "He's shy," Nia explained, climbing onto the swing next to her brother. "But watch this. Noah, do the thing with your feet." Noah's face lit up with a small smile. He lifted his legs straight out in front of him as he swung, creating a satisfying tapping sound when his sneakers hit the ground on each pass. "That's really cool," Evan said, meaning it. "Did you figure that out yourself?" Noah nodded proudly, then did it again, this time adding a little rhythm. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, pause. "He's making a song," Naya said. "Noah makes songs with everything. Show him the hand thing, Noah." But Noah had gone shy again, hiding his face behind his hands with a giggle. Evan found himself smiling, really smiling for the first time in years. These children were perfect. They were funny and sweet and so completely themselves. And somehow, impossibly, they were his. "Can you do the foot thing too?" Nia asked Evan. "I don't know. These swings might be a little small for me. Try the bigger one." She pointed to an adult-sized swing at the end of the row. Evan glanced back at Maya, who gave another small nod. Permission granted. He settled carefully onto the larger swing, feeling ridiculous, but oddly happy. When he lifted his legs and tapped his feet on the ground like Noah had done, both children dissolved into delighted giggles. "You're doing it wrong," Naya informed him. You have to make the pattern. Noah, show him. Noah, emboldened by his sisters. Encouragement, demonstrated again. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, pause. Evan tried to copy the rhythm, but his timing was off. The children found this hilarious, and soon they were all laughing together as Evan deliberately messed up the pattern, making increasingly silly variations until even shy Noah was giggling openly. Time, Maya called from her bench. The word hit Evan like cold water. Already? It felt like they'd just started. Ah, Mama, Nia protested. Can't we stay a little longer? We talked about this, Maya said gently but firmly. Short visits first. Nia sighed dramatically but climbed down from her swing. Noah followed his sister's lead, though he looked back at Evan with something that might have been disappointment. As they gathered their things, Nia ran back to Evan. Will you come play with us again? Evan's throat felt tight. I'd like that very much, if it's okay with your mom. Maya was approaching, the backpack slung over her shoulder. We'll see, she told Nia. Say goodbye. Bye, Evan. Nia threw her arms around his legs in a quick hug that nearly knocked him over with its sweetness. Noah hung back, but he gave that small wave again, the same one from yesterday. Bye, guys, Evan managed. Thanks for teaching me the foot song. As they walked away across the grass, Evan heard Nia chattering to her mother. He's funny, Mama, and he's really tall. Did you see how he couldn't fit on the regular swings? Maya's response was too quiet for Evan to hear, but she looked back once before they reached their car. The look wasn't unfriendly, but it was measuring, still deciding whether he could be trusted with the most important parts of her world. Evan sat back down on the bench and watched their car disappear around the corner. His phone had been buzzing with work calls and messages, but for once, he didn't care. Nothing at the office seemed important compared to the memory of two children's laughter, the way Noah had finally smiled, the feel of Naya's quick hug around his legs. He had missed 4 years, 4 years of playground songs and swing set giggles and bedtime stories, 4 years of being needed and loved and trusted. But maybe, just maybe, he hadn't missed everything. Maybe there was still time to be the father those beautiful children deserved, if he could prove to Maya that he'd learned how to stay. That evening, Maya's text was brief but not unkind. Thursday, 4 p.m., library story time. Same rules. Evan saved the date immediately, cancelling a conference call that had been scheduled for weeks. The old Evan would have tried to negotiate a different time, would have put work first and family second, but the old Evan had never heard Noah's laugh or felt Naya's arms around his legs. The old Evan had never understood what he was really fighting for. Thursday couldn't come soon enough. The children's section of the Riverside Library buzzed with activity when Evan arrived 10 minutes early on Thursday. Parents and caregivers filled child-sized chairs arranged in a semicircle, while toddlers crawled between their legs and older children flipped through picture books. The librarian, a woman with silver hair and paint-stained fingers, was setting up an easel near the front. Evan found a seat in the back row, trying to look casual while his eyes searched for Maya and the twins. They arrived right on time, Maya carrying a small tote bag, while Noah and Nia held hands beside her. Both children wore matching green shirts and jeans, their hair neatly combed. Maya spotted Evan immediately and gave him a brief nod before settling the children in the third row. Nia bounced in her seat, clearly excited, while Noah sat quietly, his hands folded in his lap. Even from the back, Evan could see they were perfect, well-behaved but not stiff, comfortable in this routine they'd obviously done many times before. "Good afternoon, everyone," the librarian called out. "I'm Miss Janet, and today we're reading about friendship. Who can tell me what makes a good friend?" Hands shot up around the circle. Naya's hand was one of the highest. "The little girl in the green shirt," Miss Janet said with a smile. "A good friend shares," Nia announced proudly. "That's right. What else?" "They don't lie," called out an older boy. "They help when you're sad," added a girl with pigtails. Noah raised his hand tentatively. Miss Janet noticed and nodded encouragingly. They listen," Noah said quietly, but his voice carried clearly in the hushed space. "Oh, that's wonderful," Miss Janet said. "Listening is one of the most important things friends do for each other." Evan felt something warm spread through his chest. Noah was thoughtful, careful with his words. He reminded Evan of himself at that age, always thinking before speaking, watching the world with serious eyes. Miss Janet opened the book, and the room fell quiet except for the soft rustle of pages and the occasional whisper between parent and child. The story was about a rabbit who learned to share his carrot garden with a new neighbor, and Miss Janet read with animated voices that made the children giggle. Everything was going perfectly until Miss Janet rang a small brass bell to signal the end of the story. The sharp, bright sound cut through the quiet library like a fire alarm. Noah's hands flew to his ears, his face crumpling as the unexpected noise sent him into immediate distress. His quiet whimper quickly escalated to panicked crying. Maya was up in an instant, her arms around Noah, but he was too overwhelmed to be comforted. Other parents were starting to stare, some with sympathy, others with the barely concealed judgment that came when someone else's child disrupted a peaceful moment. Evan didn't think. He slipped out of his chair and made his way quickly to where Maya was trying to soothe Noah, who was now crying harder, his small body shaking with the force of his upset. "Hey, buddy," Evan said softly, crouching down beside Maya. That bell was really loud, wasn't it? Noah's crying didn't stop, but his eyes found Evan's through his tears. "I don't like loud sounds either," Evan continued in the same gentle voice. "Want to try something that helps me? We can count our breathing. In for 3, out for 3. Like this," Evan demonstrated, making his breathing visible and audible. 1, 2, 3 in. 1, 2, 3 out. Maya looked surprised but didn't stop him. Naya had moved closer, her face worried for her brother. "Can you help us count, Naya?" Evan asked. "Noah's really good at counting." Nia nodded seriously and knelt beside her brother. "Noah, let's count like Evan. You're the best counter." Something about his sister's voice seemed to reach Noah. His sobs became hiccups, and he tried to copy Evan's exaggerated breathing. 1, 2, 3. In and out. "That's perfect," Evan said. "You're doing great. Let's do it 3 more times." By the 3rd round, Noah's breathing had steadied. His face was still blotchy and tear-stained, but the panic had passed. He leaned against Maya's chest, exhausted but calmer. "Well done." Maya murmured to both children, then looked at Evan with something that might have been gratitude. "Thank you." "Loud sounds are tricky," Evan said to Noah. "But you handled it really well once you remembered how to breathe." Noah nodded solemnly, then surprised everyone by reaching out and patting Evan's hand, a small gesture of thanks. The librarian approached with concern. "Is everything okay? I'm so sorry about the bell. I should have warned everyone." "He's fine," Maya said firmly. "Just sensitive to sudden sounds. It's not a big deal." But Evan could see the tension in Maya's shoulders, the defensive way she'd positioned herself slightly in front of Noah. She was used to protecting him from people who didn't understand, who thought his sensitivity was something to be fixed rather than accommodated. "The bell surprised me too," Evan said to Miss Janet. "Maybe next time a gentle countdown first? In 3, 2, 1? "That's a wonderful suggestion," Miss Janet said warmly. "I'll definitely try that." As they gathered their things to leave, Naya slipped her hand into Evan's. "You made Noah feel better," she said simply. That was nice. Outside the library, Maya strapped the children into their car seats while Evan waited nearby, not sure if he should leave or if she wanted to talk. The decision was made for him when Noah spoke up from the back seat. "Evan," he said clearly, "thank you for the breathing." It was the first time Noah had said his name, and it hit Evan like a punch to the chest. "You're welcome, buddy. You did all the hard work. I just helped you remember how strong you are." Maya finished buckling Nia's seatbelt and straightened, studying Evan's face. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. "Saturday?" she said quietly. "There's a small cafe where I work sometimes, kids area in the back, very quiet, if you want to come by around." "Too? I'd like that," Evan said. "Very much." As their car pulled away, Evan stood on the library steps feeling like something fundamental had shifted. Noah had trusted him in a moment of vulnerability. Naya had taken his hand without hesitation, and Maya had let him help instead of stepping in to handle everything alone. It was a small beginning, but it felt enormous. His phone rang on the drive home, his assistant checking about the conference call he'd cancelled. "Reschedule it," Evan said without hesitation, "and clear my Saturday afternoon." Something important came up, because for the first time in years, something actually was more important than work. 2 somethings, actually, with grey-green eyes and the sweetest smiles he'd ever seen. Maya's cafe was exactly what Evan had expected, warm, welcoming, and filled with the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods. Dell's Morning Cup sat on a tree-lined street in the older part of town, its windows decorated with hand-painted flowers and a chalkboard sign advertising the daily specials. A bell chimed softly as Evan pushed through the door, but this bell was gentle, warm, nothing like the sharp library bell that had upset Noah. The main seating area was busy with the usual Saturday afternoon crowd, college students with laptops, families sharing oversized muffins, an elderly couple reading separate sections of the newspaper. Maya emerged from behind the counter, wiping her hands on a flour-dusted apron. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she looked perfectly at home in this space, confident and competent, in a way that made Evan realize how much of her life he'd never known. "You found it," she said simply. "GPS," he admitted, plus the smell of cinnamon rolls from 2 blocks away. That earned him a small smile. "Aunt Dell's recipe. I've been trying to perfect it for months." She led him toward the back of the cafe, past the main seating area to a smaller room that had clearly been designed with families in mind. Low tables, cushioned bench seating, and a corner filled with books and quiet toys. Noah and Naya were already there, sharing a plate of apple slices and taking turns coloring in a large book. "Evan!" Nia jumped up immediately, her face bright with excitement. "Look, we're coloring a dragon." Noah made it purple with orange spots. "That's very creative," Evan said, crouching down to admire their work. "I like the spots." "Did you two plan the colors together?" "Noah picked purple because it's his favorite," Naya explained, "and I picked orange because it's bright and happy. Mama says we make a good team." Noah looked up from his careful coloring and nodded seriously. "Good team," he repeated quietly. Maya returned with a cup of coffee for Evan and a plate of what looked like homemade cookies. "Sample batch," she explained. "I'm testing a new recipe." Evan took a bite and closed his eyes. The cookie was perfect, soft but not too sweet, with hints of vanilla and brown butter. "This is incredible, better than anything I've had at those fancy downtown places." "You don't have to flatter me," Maya said, but he could see she was pleased. "I'm not. I'm serious. You could sell these anywhere." Maya settled into the seat across from him while the children continued their coloring project. "I do sell them. Here, mostly, but I've been thinking about expanding. Maybe a weekend farmer's market stand." "That's a great idea. Have you looked into the permits?" "Some. It's complicated, and I don't have a lot of extra time for research." Evan found himself leaning forward, interested. "I could help. I mean, if you want. I deal with permits and licensing for my business. It's mostly paperwork and knowing who to call." Maya's expression became carefully neutral. "You don't need to do that. I know I don't need to. I want to. You've built something really beautiful here, Maya. You should be proud." Before she could respond, Noah appeared at Evan's elbow, holding up a red crayon. "Help?" he asked quietly. Evan looked at the coloring book, then at Maya, who nodded. "What do you need help with, buddy?" Noah pointed to a section of the dragon's wing. "Too hard," he said simply. The area Noah indicated was filled with intricate scales that would indeed be challenging for small hands. Evan took the crayon and began carefully outlining a few of the scales, working slowly so Noah could see the technique. "Like this?" Evan asked. Noah nodded and took the crayon back, his tongue poking out in concentration as he tried to copy Evan's careful strokes. When he successfully completed a scale, his face lit up with pride. "Good job," Nia cheered from across the table. "Now do more." They worked together in comfortable quiet, the three of them bent over the coloring book, while Maya moved between their table and the counter, helping customers and checking on the afternoon crowd. Evan found himself watching her work the way she remembered exactly how each regular customer liked their coffee, how she genuinely listened when people talked, how she made even the smallest interaction feel personal and warm. This was the Maya he'd fallen in love with years ago, but deeper somehow, more grounded. She'd found her place in the world and built something meaningful from it. "Mama," Nia called out during a brief lull, "can we show Evan the garden?" Maya glanced out the window toward the small courtyard behind the cafe. "If he wants to see it." "I'd love to," Evan said honestly. The garden was small but carefully tended. Herbs grew in neat rows along one wall, while flowers bloomed in colorful clusters throughout the space. A small table and 2 chairs sat in the center, clearly a peaceful retreat from the busy cafe. "Mama grows the herbs for cooking," Nia explained, running ahead to point out different plants. "This is basil, and this is, rosemary," Noah said quietly. "Right, rosemary, and this one smells really good." Nia pinched a leaf from a bushy plant and held it out to Evan. The scent was bright and lemony. "Lemon thyme," Evan said, recognizing it from his mother's old garden. "You know about herbs?" Maya asked, sounding surprised. "My mom gardened. I used to help her when I was little." He hadn't thought about those afternoons in years, his mother's patient hands, showing him how to plant seeds, how to tell when tomatoes were ready for picking. "She must have been a good teacher," Maya said softly. "She was." Evan touched another herb plant, memories stirring. "She always said gardening taught you to be patient, that the best things take time to grow." Maya was quiet for a moment, watching him. "Do you still garden?" Evan shook his head. "My place is all hardwood floors and granite counters, very modern, no room for anything green." "That sounds lonely," Noah said unexpectedly. The simple observation hit Evan harder than it should have. Out of the mouths of babes. His beautiful, expensive townhouse was lonely. Everything about his life was lonely when he really thought about it. "Maybe I should get some plants," he said lightly. "You could grow herbs on a windowsill," Nia suggested helpfully. "Then you could make tea like Mama does." "That's a good idea. Would you two help me pick what to grow? If I get some plants?" Both children nodded enthusiastically, already planning which herbs he should start with. Maya watched this exchange with an expression Evan couldn't quite read. Back inside the cafe, the afternoon crowd was thinning out. Maya moved efficiently between tasks, wiping down tables, restocking the pastry case, preparing for the evening rush that would come after dinner. Evan found himself helping without being asked, carrying dirty dishes to the back, straightening chairs. "You don't have to do that," Maya said, but she didn't sound upset about it. "I know." Evan loaded another tray with empty cups. "Feels good to be useful." They worked together with the same easy rhythm he remembered from their marriage, when they'd tackled weekend chores as a team. Maya washed dishes while Evan dried, and the children played quietly at their table, occasionally bringing them important updates about the dragon's progress. "He's done," Nia announced finally. "Come see." They gathered around the coloring book to admire the finished dragon. It was a masterpiece of 4-year-old artistry, purple with orange spots and red wing details, colored with the intense focus only small children could bring to important projects. "It's perfect," Maya said warmly. "You two worked really hard on this." "Evan helped with the hard parts," Noah said, looking up at Evan with those serious gray-green eyes. "Thank you. Thank you for letting me help. It was fun." As the afternoon wound down, Maya began the familiar routine of gathering the children's things and preparing to leave. Evan recognized the signs, the subtle shift toward departure, the gentle reminders about putting away toys. "This was really nice," he said to Maya quietly while the children gathered their crayons. "It was," she agreed, and she sounded slightly surprised by that fact. "Could we? Would it be okay if we did this again? Maybe next weekend?" Maya was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "What do you want, Evan?" "Really?" The question caught him off guard with its directness. What did he want? "I want to know them," he said finally. "Noah and Nia. I want to be part of their lives, if they'll have me. And I want." He paused, then forced himself to be completely honest. "I want to try again with you, if you'll let me. Not rushing back into anything, just trying. Seeing if we can do better this time." Maya's expression was carefully neutral, but he could see her thinking, weighing his words against whatever defenses she'd built around herself and the children. "They like you," she said finally. "That's not something I expected. I like them too, a lot. And me." Evan met her eyes directly. "I never stopped loving you, Maya, even when I was too stubborn and scared to fight for us." She was quiet for a long time. The children had finished cleaning up and were waiting patiently by the door, ready for the next part of their Saturday routine. "One day at a time," Maya said finally. "That's all I can promise right now. One day at a time is perfect." Evan agreed. As they walked toward the front of the cafe, Nia slipped her hand into Evan's, with the casual trust of childhood. Noah walked beside them, carrying the coloring book carefully. "Will you come color with us next week?" Nia asked. Evan looked at Maya, who gave a small nod. "I'd love to," he said. "Maybe we can start a new picture. Something even bigger than a dragon." "Like what?" Nia asked, already planning. "I don't know. What's bigger than a dragon?" Noah considered this seriously. "Two dragons," he said finally. Evan laughed, surprised and delighted by the unexpected humor. "You're absolutely right. Two dragons it is." As he walked to his car, Evan could hear the children's voices carrying on the evening air, already discussing what colors the two dragons should be. Maya's voice joined theirs, warm and patient, guiding them toward their next destination. For the first time in years, Evan didn't want to check his phone or think about work or plan the next move in his business strategy. He just wanted to hold on to this feeling, the warmth of a small hand in his, the satisfaction of a shared project completed, the possibility of tomorrow and next week, and all the small moments that might be waiting, one day at a time. It was the most hopeful thing he'd heard in years. The following Tuesday arrived grey and drizzle-soaked, the kind of weather that made everyone move a little slower and speak a little quieter. Evan had been checking his phone obsessively since Monday, hoping for a text from Maya suggesting another meeting. When it finally came Tuesday morning, it wasn't what he'd expected. Emergency. At the cafe. "Aunt Dell's sick. Need someone to watch N&N for 2 hours while I handle lunch rush. If you're free and want to help." No pressure. Evan snapped his laptop shut without finishing the email he'd been writing. 20 minutes later, he was standing outside Maya's apartment building, his heart racing with nerves and excitement in equal measure. Maya answered the door, looking frazzled but grateful. Her hair was escaping from its ponytail, and she wore the flour-dusted apron that meant she'd been baking since dawn. "You came," she said, relief evident in her voice. "Of course I came." Evan stepped inside, taking in the warm chaos of a real family home. Toys were scattered across the living room floor, children's artwork covered the refrigerator, and the scent of cinnamon and vanilla lingered in the air like a promise. "They've already had lunch," Maya said, grabbing her purse and a light jacket. "Nap time is at 1:30. Nia will fight it, but she needs it, or she'll be cranky tonight. Noah goes down easy. There are snacks in the kitchen if they get hungry, and my number's on the fridge. I should be back by 3 at the latest." "Maya." Evan caught her arm gently as she rushed past. "Breathe." "I've got this." She stopped, really looking at him for the first time since he'd arrived. "You don't know their routines. What if they get upset?" "What if?" "Then I'll figure it out. Kids are resilient, right? And if there's a real emergency, you're 15 minutes away." Maya nodded, but he could see the worry in her eyes. Leaving the children with someone new, even their father, was clearly not easy for her. "Mama," Nia appeared in the doorway, wearing a princess dress over her regular clothes. "Evan's here. Are you going to work now?" "Yes, baby. Evan's going to stay with you and Noah until I get back. You remember our rules about guests? Be polite, use inside voices, and no jumping on the furniture," Nia recited dutifully. "Good girl. Where's your brother?" Reading in his room. "He's being quiet because he knows you're worried about Aunt Dell." Maya's expression softened. Even at 4, Noah was remarkably attuned to the emotions of the adults around him. After Maya left with a final worried look over her shoulder, Evan found himself alone with his children for the first time. The significance wasn't lost on him, but he tried not to let the weight of it show. "So," he said, settling onto the living room floor, where Nia was arranging a tea party. "What's the plan for this morning?" "Tea party first," Nia announced. "Then we have to wake up Noah because he's been reading forever, and Mama says too much reading makes your eyes tired. That sounds like a good plan." "Can I join the tea party?" "You have to use a fancy voice," Nia informed him, seriously. "And you have to hold your pinky up like this," she demonstrated, with her plastic teacup. Evan spent the next 20 minutes being thoroughly educated in the finer points of imaginary tea service. Nia was a demanding hostess, correcting his posture and insisting he compliment the invisible cucumber sandwiches with appropriate enthusiasm. When they went to collect Noah, they found him curled up on his bed with a picture book about trucks, his finger tracing the words he recognized. He looked up when they appeared in his doorway, his serious eyes taking in Evan's presence in their home. "Hi, buddy," Evan said softly. "Nia thinks you've been reading long enough. Want to join us in the living room?" Noah considered this, then carefully closed his book and slid off the bed. He was wearing pajamas with dinosaurs on them, and his hair stuck up in the back where he'd been lying down. "Are you tired?" Evan asked as they walked back to the living room. Noah shook his head, but his movements were slow and careful the way children moved when they were fighting exhaustion. "I'm not tired either," Nia declared, though she was rubbing her eyes. Evan recognized the signs. In about an hour, both children would hit the wall of tiredness and need to be guided gently toward nap time. Until then, he needed to keep them calm and entertained. "Want to see something cool?" he asked, pulling out his phone. "I found some pictures of herbs we could grow in pots, like we talked about at the cafe." Both children perked up immediately, clustering around him on the couch as he scrolled through photos of container gardens. They debated the merits of different herbs with the seriousness of master gardeners, Nia favoring anything with flowers, while Noah preferred plants with interesting textures. "This one's fuzzy," Noah said, pointing to a photo of lamb's ear. "That's not for cooking," Nia informed him. "That's just for petting. Some plants are just for beauty," Evan agreed. "There's nothing wrong with that." As they looked at pictures, Noah gradually leaned against Evan's side, his head drooping toward Evan's shoulder. Nia was still chattering about flowers, but her voice was getting softer, her movements slower. "You know what?" Evan said when Noah's eyes started to flutter closed. "I'm feeling a little tired myself. Maybe we could all rest for a few minutes?" "I don't nap," Nia said automatically, but she was already curling up on the other side of the couch. "Not a nap," Evan agreed. "Just quiet time. We could put on some soft music and close our eyes. Sometimes that helps me think better." He found a classical music playlist on his phone and turned the volume low. Within 10 minutes, both children were fast asleep, Noah against his shoulder and Nia curled up like a cat on the couch cushions. Evan sat perfectly still, afraid to move and wake them. Noah's breathing was deep and even, his small body warm and trusting against Evan's side. Nia had one hand tucked under her cheek, her princess dress spread around her like flower petals. This was what he'd missed, not just the big moments, first words and first steps, but the quiet intimacy of an ordinary afternoon. The trust of a child falling asleep against your shoulder, the privilege of being the safe harbor when small bodies needed rest. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "How's it going? Any disasters?" He typed back carefully with one hand, not wanting to disturb Noah. "2 sleeping angels." "All good here." Her response came quickly. "Impossible. Nia never naps willingly. Magic of quiet music and comfortable couch. Don't rush back. We're fine." When Maya returned an hour later, she found them exactly as Evan had described, 2 children sleeping peacefully while Evan sat motionless, clearly afraid to move. "How long have they been out?" she whispered. "About an hour. I didn't want to risk putting them in their beds and waking them up." Maya's expression was soft as she looked at her children. "You can move, you know. They're deep sleepers once they're really out." But Evan didn't want to move. This moment felt too precious to disturb Noah's steady breathing against his shoulder, Nia's complete trust, the quiet satisfaction of having successfully cared for them on his own. "How was the cafe?" he asked quietly. "Crazy busy, but we managed. Dell should be better by tomorrow." Maya settled into the chair across from him, her eyes still on the children. "Thank you for this. I know it was short notice. Thank you for calling me, for trusting me with them." Maya was quiet for a moment. "They're comfortable with you. That's not something I expected to happen so quickly." "They're easy to love," Evan said simply. Something in his voice must have caught her attention because she looked at him more closely. "What is it?" "I keep thinking about all the afternoons like this that I missed. All the times they needed comfort or help, or just someone to sit with them, and I wasn't here." "Evan, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me," he said quickly. "I made choices that led to this. I'm just saying, I don't want to miss any more. Whatever it takes to be part of their lives, part of your life, I want to do it right this time." Maya studied his face for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful but not unkind. "It can't just be about what you want anymore. It has to be about what's best for them. For Noah and Nia. I know that. Do you? Because loving them means accepting that their needs come first. Always. Even when it's inconvenient, or expensive, or means changing everything about how you live. Evan looked down at Noah's sleeping face, then at Naya's peaceful expression. Then that's what I'll do, whatever they need. It's not just the big gestures, Maya continued. It's showing up every day. It's being patient when Noah needs extra time to process new situations. It's listening to Naya's stories even when they don't make sense. It's being consistent even when work is demanding or life gets complicated. I understand. I don't think you do. Not yet. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. You've had them for 2 hours, Evan. 2 hours when they were on their best behavior in a controlled environment. Real parenting is harder than this. Evan knew she was right. He'd caught a glimpse of what it meant to be responsible for these small lives, but it was just a glimpse. The real test would come with illness and tantrums and the 1,000 small demands of daily life. Then teach me, he said. Let me learn. I know I have a lot to prove, but give me the chance to prove it. Maya was quiet for so long that Evan wondered if he'd pushed too hard, asked for too much too soon. But when she finally spoke, her words surprised him. There's a school event next Friday, a harvest festival. Families bring food to share and the kids perform songs they've learned. It's the kind of thing where Noah and Naya will notice if they're the only ones there without a dad. Evan's heart jumped. Are you asking me to come with you? I'm asking if you want to come, as their father, not as a guest or a trial run, but as part of their family. People will ask questions, and I'll tell them the truth that you're Noah and Naya's father, and we're working things out. The weight of what she was offering hit him fully. Not just time with the children, but public acknowledgement, the chance to be introduced as their father, to stand beside Maya at a school function like any other parent. Yes, he said without hesitation, I want that. Very much. It starts at 6. We should probably arrive together, leave together, for their sake, so they feel like a united front. Of course. Noah stirred against Evan's shoulder, making small sleepy sounds before settling again. Maya watched this with an expression Evan couldn't quite read. They trust you, she said finally. I didn't expect that to happen so fast. They're incredible kids, Maya. You've done an amazing job raising them. We've done an amazing job. They're half you too, even if you weren't here for the raising part. It was the first time she'd acknowledged him as their father in anything other than clinical terms. Not just biologically, but meaningfully. I want to be here for everything else, he said. If you'll let me, one day at a time, Maya repeated her earlier words. But Evan, today was a good day. As if sensing the conversation was winding down, Nia began to stir, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around in confusion for a moment before focusing on Evan. Did I fall asleep? She asked, sounding surprised. Just for a little while, he said softly. Sometimes our bodies need rest even when we don't think we're tired. Nia sat up, her princess dress wrinkled but her mood bright. Are you staying for dinner? Evan looked at Maya, who gave a small nod. If it's okay with your mum, I'd love to stay for dinner. Yes. Nia bounced on the couch, her movement finally waking Noah, who blinked in confusion before remembering where he was. Dinner? Noah asked sleepily. Evan's staying, Nia announced. We can show him how we set the table. As the children fully woke up and began planning the evening's activities, Evan felt something he'd almost forgotten, the deep contentment of belonging somewhere, of being needed and wanted, not for what he could provide or accomplish, but simply for being himself. Maya was watching him with those careful eyes again, but for the first time since he'd walked back into her life, she didn't look like she was measuring him against the possibility of disappointment. She looked like she was measuring him against the possibility of hope, and for the first time, Evan thought he might be worthy of that hope. The Harvest Festival was everything Maya had promised, and more. Roosevelt Elementary's gymnasium had been transformed into an autumn wonderland, complete with paper leaf garlands, carved pumpkins, and the warm scent of apple cider and homemade cookies. Parents filled folding chairs arranged in neat rows while children in their best clothes fidgeted with excitement backstage. Evan straightened his tie for the 4th time, more nervous than he'd been for any business presentation. Maya looked beautiful in a deep blue dress that brought out the warm tones in her skin, her hair swept back in a style that was both elegant and practical for chasing children. Noah and Nia had been dressed with special care, Noah in khakis and a button-down shirt, Nia in a yellow dress with a sweater that she'd insisted matched her brother's outfit. "You look perfect," Evan told them as they walked toward the school entrance. "Both of you." "I know," Naya said with 4-year-old confidence. "Mama said I look like a sunflower." "You do," Evan agreed. "And Noah looks very handsome and grown up." Noah ducked his head with a shy smile, but Evan caught the pleased expression that crossed his face. Inside the gymnasium, they found seats near the front where the children would be able to see them easily during their performance. Almost immediately, other parents began approaching Maya with greetings and curious glances at Evan. "Maya!" A woman with short auburn hair and paint-stained fingers hurried over. "I was hoping you'd be here, and this must be the mysterious father I've heard whispers about." Evan felt his stomach tighten, but Maya's response was calm and natural. "Susan, this is Evan Hale. Evan, Susan Chen. Her daughter Emma is in the twins class." "Nice to meet you," Evan said, offering his hand. "Emma's the one who helped Nia with her shoelaces that first week, right?" Susan looked surprised and pleased that he knew this detail. "Yes, that's our Emma. Always looking out for the littler ones." She turned to Maya with undisguised curiosity. "So you two are working things out," Maya said simply. "Day by day." It was exactly the right amount of information, honest without being defensive, clear without inviting further questions. Other parents approached throughout the evening, and Maya handled each introduction with the same calm grace. Evan found himself relaxing as he realized that most people were simply happy to see Maya looking content. "She's been alone with those kids for too long," he overheard one father say to his wife. "Good for her if she's found someone who treats them right." The comment stung because it was true. Maya had been raising Noah and Nia alone for 4 years, handling everything from midnight fevers to parent-teacher conferences without backup. But it also filled him with determination to be the partner and father they all deserved. When the lights dimmed and the program began, Evan's attention focused completely on the small stage at the front of the gymnasium. The kindergarten class performed first, singing a song about falling leaves with hand motions that only half the children remembered. Then came the first grade with a poem about harvest time, and finally the preschool classes. Noah and Naya's class took the stage wearing construction paper, pilgrim hats, and Native American headbands, their teacher standing to one side with an encouraging smile. Naya spotted them immediately and waved enthusiastically, her face bright with excitement. Noah found them a moment later and gave a more reserved wave, but his smile was genuine. "The children have been practicing a song about thankfulness," the teacher announced. "They'll tell us what they're thankful for, and then we'll all sing together." One by one, the children stepped forward to share their gratitude. Emma Chen was thankful for her new baby brother. Marcus Williams was thankful for his dog. When it was Naya's turn, she stepped forward confidently. "I'm thankful for my family," she said in her clear, sweet voice. "My mama and my brother Noah, and my daddy who comes to play with us now." Evan's throat tightened unexpectedly. Daddy. She'd called him Daddy in front of everyone, claiming him publicly as part of her family. Noah's turn came next, and he approached the microphone more hesitantly. For a moment, Evan worried he might freeze, but then Noah spoke in his quiet, thoughtful way. "I'm thankful for people who help when things are too loud," he said, his eyes finding Evan's in the audience. "And for people who know about counting breaths." Maya reached over and took Evan's hand as the class began their song. Her fingers were warm and slightly trembling, and he realized she was as moved by the children's words as he was. After the program ended, and they'd taken the obligatory photos with other families, they made their way to the fellowship hall for the potluck dinner. Maya had brought her famous cinnamon rolls, and Evan watched with pride as other parents complimented them and asked for the recipe. "Family recipe," Maya would say with a small smile, "passed down from my aunt." The children ran between tables with their classmates, their earlier nervous energy transformed into pure joy. Evan found himself in conversation with other fathers about everything from work to weekend plans, slipping naturally into the rhythm of parent small talk. "First school event?" asked Jim Martinez, whose son was in Noah's class. "Yeah, I've missed a few years, but I'm hoping to make up for lost time. They grow fast," Jim said knowingly. "My advice? Show up for everything you can. They remember who was there." As the evening wound down, they gathered coats and said goodbyes. In the car, Both children chatted excitedly about the program, their friends, and the dessert table they'd thoroughly investigated. "Did you see Marcus fall down during the song?" Nia giggled. "He got right back up, though. That was brave." Mrs. Peterson said. "I did a good job speaking into the microphone," Noah added quietly. "She said my voice was very clear." "You both did beautifully," Maya said. "I was so proud of how you shared what you were thankful for." "Daddy looked happy when I said about family," Nia observed. "His eyes got watery like when you watch sad movies." Evan caught Maya's amused glance in the rearview mirror. "Those were happy tears," he explained. "Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're very happy." "That's silly," Nia declared. "But okay." Back at Maya's apartment, the children changed into pajamas while Maya started their bedtime routine. Without being asked, Evan found himself helping gathering toys that needed to be put away, filling water cups for bedside tables, locating the specific stuffed animals required for peaceful sleep. "Story time," Maya announced when both children were in their pajamas with teeth brushed and faces washed. They gathered in Noah's room, which had become the designated story location. Maya settled in the middle of the narrow bed with one child on each side, and after a moment's hesitation, Evan sat in the small chair beside the bed. "What should we read tonight?" Maya asked, looking at the small bookshelf beside the bed. "The one about the bear," Nia requested. "Which bear book?" Noah asked seriously. "We have 5 bear books. The one where the bear can't sleep," Nia clarified. Maya found the requested book and began reading in the gentle, expressive voice that made even familiar stories feel magical. Evan watched her face in the soft lamplight, remembering how she used to read to him sometimes when they were married, articles from magazines, funny things she'd found online, passages from books she thought he'd enjoy. "Now the bear tried counting sheep," Maya read, "but every time he got to 7, he would forget what came next." 8, Noah whispered helpfully. "That's right, buddy. The bear needed someone like you to help him remember." As the story progressed, Nia's eyes began to droop. She fought sleep valiantly, but by the time the bear finally found his way to dreamland, she was mostly asleep against Maya's shoulder. "My turn to carry her," Evan said softly, carefully lifting Nia from the bed. She stirred briefly but settled against his shoulder with a sleepy sigh. In her room, Evan laid her gently in her own bed, while Maya pulled up the pastavelia, covers, and arranged the collection of stuffed animals that apparently all had essential roles in Nia's sleep ritual. "Night, baby," Maya whispered, pressing a kiss to Nia's forehead. "Night, Daddy," Nia mumbled without opening her eyes. Back in Noah's room, they found him still awake but drowsy, his eyes serious in the dim light. "Did you like the festival?" he asked Evan. "I loved it. Thank you for including me. Are you coming to the next one?" Evan looked at Maya, who gave a small nod. "If you want me there, I'll be there." Noah considered this with his usual thoughtfulness. "I want you there," he said finally, "but you have to promise not to leave again." The words hit Evan like a physical blow. Even at 4, Noah understood abandonment in a way that broke Evan's heart. "I promise," Evan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm not leaving again, buddy. Not ever." "Okay," Noah said, simply, and closed his eyes. In the living room afterward, Maya poured 2 glasses of wine and settled onto the couch beside Evan. They sat in comfortable quiet for a while, processing the evening. "They called me Daddy tonight," Evan said finally. "I heard." Maya's voice was soft. "How did that feel?" "Terrifying. Amazing. Like the most important thing I've ever been called." Maya smiled. "It is." "Maya, I need you to know something. When Noah asked me to promise not to leave again, I meant it. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever it takes to make this work, to be the father they need and the partner you deserve, I'll do it." Maya was quiet for a long time, turning her wineglass in her hands. "I want to believe that," she said finally. "But promises are easy to make when everything's going well. The test comes when life gets messy, when work demands more time than you want to give, when the kids are sick and cranky and nothing goes according to plan. Then let me prove it, not with words, but with actions, day by day, like you said." Maya met his eyes directly. "I've been thinking about what you said, about counseling. I think we should try it. Not couples therapy necessarily, but family counseling, learning how to co-parent effectively. How to put the children first even when we disagree about things. I'd like that. Whatever helps us be better parents. And I've been thinking about something else. Maya's voice became more hesitant. The kids have been asking why you don't stay for breakfast sometimes, why you always leave at bedtime. Evan's heart jumped, but he kept his voice careful. What have you told them? That families come in different shapes, that some daddies live in different houses, but they're starting to ask why. She paused, then looked at him directly. I'm not ready for you to move in. I'm not ready for us to be a couple again. But maybe we could try having you stay over sometimes. In the guest room, so they can have the experience of waking up with both parents in the house. The offer was more than Evan had dared hope for. Ah, you sure? No, Maya said honestly. But I'm willing to try. For them, if you think you can handle breakfast duty and morning chaos and all the unglamorous parts of family life. I want all of it, Evan said without hesitation. Faun, the chaos and the unglamorous parts and everything in between. I want to be here when they wake up with bad dreams and when they're excited about something and when they just need someone to tie their shoes. Maya smiled. And for the first time since he'd walked back into her life, it was the same warm, unguarded smile he remembered from their early days together. Okay then, she said. Let's try. That night, Evan lay in the small guest room, listening to the sounds of a house settling around a sleeping family. Down the hall, he could hear the soft whisper of central air and the occasional creak of old floorboards. It was nothing like his sleek townhouse with its modern soundproofing and sterile perfection. It was better. It was home. For the first time in 4 years, Evan fell asleep, knowing that when he woke up, there would be small voices calling for breakfast and tiny feet running down the hallway and the warm chaos of a family beginning another day together. He was exactly where he belonged. The smell of pancakes and coffee pulled Evan from sleep at 6:30 the next morning. For a moment, he was disoriented. His own townhouse didn't smell like vanilla and cinnamon, didn't have the soft sounds of a family stirring to life. Then memory flooded back, and he smiled into his pillow before sitting up. Down the hall, he could hear Maya's voice mixing with the children's chatter, the familiar morning symphony of, "Did you brush your teeth?" and "Where did you put your socks?" and "No, you cannot have cookies for breakfast." Evan pulled on jeans and a sweater, ran a hand through his hair, and padded toward the kitchen in bare feet. The scene that greeted him was beautifully chaotic. Maya at the stove, flipping pancakes while simultaneously braiding Naya's hair. Noah at the small table, carefully cutting his pancake into perfect squares, and syrup somehow already decorating both children's faces, despite breakfast having barely begun. "Morning," he said softly, not wanting to disrupt the routine but wanting them to know he was there. "Daddy." Nia bounced in her chair, nearly toppling her orange juice. Mama made pancakes shaped like pumpkins. "Look." Sure enough, Maya had somehow managed to create pancakes that actually resembled small pumpkins, complete with ridges and everything. Evan looked at her with undisguised admiration. "How did you do that?" "Cookie cutters and a lot of patience," Maya said, not looking up from the pan. "Coffee's fresh, and there's orange juice in the fridge." "You don't have to." "I want to help," Evan interrupted gently. "What can I do?" Maya glanced at him, then at the chaos surrounding them. "Noah needs help with his shoelaces, and Naya's backpack is somewhere in the living room disaster zone. School starts in 45 minutes. Evan knelt beside Noah's chair, where the 4-year-old was frowning at his sneakers in concentration. "Hey, buddy." "Shoelace troubles." "They don't want to stay tied," Noah said seriously. "I do it like Mama showed me, but they come undone." "Let me see your technique," Evan said, watching as Noah carefully formed loops and pulled them through. His method was correct, but loose, the kind of tying that worked for practice but wouldn't survive a morning of playground activity. "You've got the right idea," Evan said. "Want to try a trick my dad taught me? It's called the double knot, and it's like giving your shoes a really strong hug so they can't wiggle loose." For the next few minutes, they worked together on perfecting Noah's shoe-tying technique. Meanwhile, Nia had finished her pancakes and was explaining to Maya in great detail why her purple shirt absolutely had to be worn today because it matched the flowers on her backpack. "Purple flowers need purple shirts," Nia said with unshakable 4-year-old logic. "Otherwise they get lonely." "Of course they do." Maya agreed solemnly. though Evan caught the smile tugging at her lips. The next half hour passed in a blur of morning routines, backpacks packed, permission slips signed, a minor crisis when Noah couldn't find his library book, eventually located under the couch cushions, and the delicate negotiation over whether Naya could wear her dress-up jewelry to school, compromise reached with a simple necklace that wouldn't violate the dress code. 15 minutes, Maya announced, wiping syrup off both children's faces with the efficiency of long practice. Bathroom, teeth, and then we leave. As the children scattered to complete their final preparations, Maya began the familiar dance of clearing breakfast dishes and gathering her own work supplies. Evan found himself naturally falling into the rhythm, loading the dishwasher while Maya packed lunch boxes, wiping down the table while she gathered her purse and keys. "You don't have to," Maya started again. "Maya," Evan paused in his dish loading to look at her directly. "If we're going to make this work, all of us, as a family, then I need to be part of the real stuff. The morning chaos and the evening routines and all the ordinary moments in between. Okay?" Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes that told him she was beginning to believe he really meant it. "Okay," she said quietly, "but fair warning, mornings only get crazier from here until they're old enough to manage more on their own." "I'm looking forward to the craziness," Evan said, and found that he meant it completely. The school drop-off was another revelation. Evan had expected a simple process drive to school, walk children to classroom, leave. Instead, he discovered a complex social ecosystem that Maya navigated with practiced ease. There were other parents to greet, teachers to check in with, and a dozen small interactions that made up the fabric of their community. "Maya," a woman with graying hair and paint-stained apron called out as they approached the preschool entrance. "How's Dell feeling? I heard she was under the weather yesterday." "Much better, thanks. She'll be back at the cafe today, probably bossing everyone around by noon." "Good to hear. And you must be Evan," the woman said, turning to him with friendly curiosity. "I'm Janet Morrison, Noah's teacher. The children have mentioned you quite a bit recently." "All good things, I hope," Evan said, shaking her hand. "Very good things. Noah told us about the breathing exercise you taught him. We've actually started using it with some of our other students when they get overwhelmed." Pride swelled in Evan's chest. Something he'd shared with Noah was helping other children too. "Noah's very thoughtful," Evan said. "He figured out the technique faster than most adults would." "He is thoughtful, Miss," Morrison agreed. "And Naya's been telling anyone who'll listen about the dragon you all colored together. She's requested dragon coloring sheets for art time 3 days in a row." As they walked the children to their classroom, Evan noticed how naturally Maya interacted with everyone, from the crossing guard who asked about her weekend to the janitor who complimented her on the cookies she'd brought for the teacher's lounge. She belonged here, was woven into the fabric of this place in a way that spoke to years of consistent presence. "See you after school," Maya told the children, crouching down for goodbye hugs. "Remember what we talked about for show and tell today?" "The leaf collection," Noah said seriously. "And I'm going to tell about the dragon picture," Naya added. Both children hugged Evan goodbye too, their small arms fierce around his legs. It was becoming natural, this casual affection, and Evan found himself treasuring each spontaneous hug and high five. Walking back to the car, Maya was quiet, but not in a way that felt uncomfortable, more like she was processing something. "Penny for your thoughts," Evan said as they reached the parking lot. "I was thinking about how different this feels," she said slowly. "Having someone else here for the morning routine. Having backup when Noah couldn't find his library book or when Naya decided she absolutely needed to change shirts at the last minute. Different good or different bad?" Maya considered this. "Different good, I think. Scary, but good." They'd reached her car, but neither of them moved to get in. The morning was crisp and bright, and the school playground was filling with children arriving for the day. "I have a confession," Evan said. "Last night was the best night's sleep I've had in years. Not because the guest room bed is particularly comfortable, though it's fine, but because I went to sleep knowing I'd wake up in the same house as my children." Maya leaned against her car, studying his face. "You really mean that, don't you? This isn't some midlife crisis or guilt-driven attempt to fix the past." "It's not about fixing the past," Evan said. "The past happened. We can't change that I missed 4 years, or that our marriage fell apart, or any of the mistakes we both made, but we can choose what happens next. And I choose this, choose them, choose you, choose showing up every day, even when it's hard. Even when work demands conflict with soccer practice, even when they're sick and cranky and nothing goes according to plan, even when I'm stressed about money or Aunt Dell's health, or any of the 100 things that make life complicated. Especially then, Evan said without hesitation. Maya, my business will survive if I miss a few meetings or delegate more responsibility, but Noah and Naya won't get another childhood. This is it, these years, these moments. I'm not missing any more of them. Something in Maya's expression shifted again, that same softening he'd seen in the kitchen. I'm starting to believe you, she said quietly. Good, because I'm going to keep proving it until there's no doubt left. Maya's phone buzzed with a text, and she glanced at it with a frown. Trouble at the cafe. One of the ovens is acting up, and we've got a big catering order due this afternoon. Go, Evan said immediately. Handle whatever crisis is waiting. I can take care of any errands or household stuff that needs doing. You don't have to, Maya. He touched her arm gently. Let me help. What needs to be done? She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Grocery run for tonight's dinner. List is on the fridge. And if you could pick up Noah's prescription from the pharmacy, it's his allergy medicine, and we're almost out. The pharmacy knows me, but you might need to show ID since you're not on the pickup list yet. Consider it done. Anything else? Laundry's in the washer. If you could move it to the dryer before it starts to smell like wet towels, that would be amazing. As Maya drove away, Evan felt an unexpected sense of purpose settling over him. These weren't glamorous tasks, grocery shopping, prescription pickup, laundry duty, but they were the building blocks of family life, the unglamorous foundation that everything else rested on. At the grocery store, Evan discovered that Maya's shopping list was a work of organizational art. Items were grouped by store section, with notes about preferred brands and reminders about which products Noah was allergic to. At the bottom, in Naya's careful preschool handwriting, was a request for the crackers that look like fish. Evan found himself smiling as he navigated the aisles, checking items off Maya's list and adding a few things she hadn't thought of. Fresh flowers for the kitchen table, the good coffee she liked but rarely bought for herself, and yes, the goldfish crackers that Naya had requested. The pharmacy proved more challenging. As Maya had predicted, Evan's name wasn't on the authorized pickup list for Noah's medication. I'm his father, Evan explained to the pharmacist, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes. But his mother usually handles pickups. I understand, but we need authorization from the parent listed on the account. Insurance regulations, you know. Evan felt a flash of the old frustration, the urge to use his business voice and demand exceptions. But then he thought about Maya's careful trust, the way she was slowly letting him into their world. Could I call his mother and have her authorize the pickup? She's dealing with a work emergency, but I know she'd want him to have his medication. The pharmacist's expression softened. Of course. We just need verbal authorization and confirmation of the child's birthday. 5 minutes later, prescription in hand, Evan felt a small surge of satisfaction. One more small step toward being a real part of their lives, not just a visitor passing through. Back at the apartment, he moved the laundry, put away groceries, and started prep work for dinner based on the recipe Maya had left on the counter. By the time his phone rang with a work call, he'd fallen into the rhythm of domestic life so completely that the business world felt like an intrusion. Evan, where are you? His assistant's voice carried a note of panic. The Morrison meeting moved up to this afternoon, and I can't find the Peterson files anywhere. The files are in the blue folder on my desk, Evan said, continuing to chop vegetables for dinner. And I'll need to attend the Morrison meeting remotely. Something important came up, important enough to miss a face-to-face with our biggest client. Yes, Evan said, without hesitation. Set up the video call for 3 o'clock. I'll be available then. After hanging up, Evan realized he'd just made a choice that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. He'd put family before business, chosen to be present for his children's after-school routine over impressing clients. And it felt absolutely right. The afternoon pickup at school went smoothly. Both children were excited to see him, chattering about their day as they walked to the car. Noah had successfully shared his leaf collection for show and tell, while Nia had captivated her classmates with the story of the two-dragon coloring project. And then Marcus said he wanted to color dragons too, Nia reported as Evan buckled her into her car seat. So, maybe we should make more dragon pictures for everyone. That sounds like a great idea, Evan said. We could have a whole dragon art gallery. At home, they fell into what was apparently the standard after-school routine. Snack time at the kitchen table, while the children decompressed from their day, followed by outdoor play in the small courtyard behind the apartment building. Evan found himself naturally taking on the role of playground supervisor, pushing swings and spotting climbers while the children burned off excess energy. "Daddy, watch this," Nia called from the top of the small slide. She'd discovered that if she went down backward, she could make her dress flare out like a parachute. "Very impressive," Evan called back. "You're like a flying princess." Noah was more cautious, preferring the swings to the climbing equipment. But he'd started a new game, where he tried to swing in perfect rhythm with the breeze, creating what he called wind songs. When Maya arrived home at 5:30, she found them in the courtyard, all three of them grass-stained and laughing. Evan was lying on his back in the small patch of lawn, while both children took turns trying to balance on his raised knees, a game that seemed to consist mostly of falling down and giggling. "Mama!" Nia spotted her first and ran over for a hug. "Daddy taught us airplane, and he made dinner start already." "He did?" Maya looked at Evan with surprise and something that might have been relief. "Nothing fancy," Evan said, sitting up and brushing grass from his shirt. "Just the recipe you left. Though I should warn you, I may have gone a little overboard at the grocery store." "He bought flowers," Noah reported seriously. "For the table. And the good crackers. And the coffee you like but never buy," Nia added. "He said families should have nice things." Maya's expression was soft as she looked at Evan. "Thank you, for all of it. How was the afternoon?" "Perfect," Evan said honestly. "Absolutely perfect." That evening, as they sat around the small kitchen table sharing the dinner Evan had prepared and listening to the children's detailed accounts of their school day, Evan felt something click into place. This was what he'd been missing, not just his children's lives, but the daily rhythm of family, the comfort of belonging to something larger than himself. "Daddy," Nia said as Maya started the bedtime routine, "are you staying over again tonight?" Evan looked at Maya, who nodded with a small smile. "If you want me to," he said. "We want you to," Noah said simply. "It's better when you're here." Later, after stories had been read and teeth brushed and both children tucked safely into their beds, Maya joined Evan in the living room with 2 cups of tea. "How was your day?" she asked, settling beside him on the couch. "Really? The honest version?" "Eye-opening," Evan said. "I had no idea how much coordination it takes just to get through a normal day with kids. The timing, the logistics, the backup plans for when things don't go according to schedule. And you still want to sign up for this chaos full-time?" Evan turned to face her fully. "Maya, today was the first day in years that I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not because it was easy, because it wasn't, but because it mattered. Everything I did today mattered to someone I love. Even the grocery shopping, especially the grocery shopping, and the laundry, and the prescription pickup, and the 10 minutes I spent looking for Noah's other sock this morning. All of it." Maya was quiet for a moment, her hands wrapped around her teacup. "I've been doing this alone for 4 years, she said finally. "Making all the decisions, handling all the crises, being the only one who knew which child needed what kind of comfort. It's been overwhelming sometimes. You don't have to do it alone anymore, not if you don't want to." "I'm starting to believe that," she said, echoing her earlier words. "But Evan, I need you to understand that if we do this, if we really try to be a family, there's no going back. These children have already been abandoned by their father once. I won't let it happen again." "It won't," Evan said firmly. "I promise you, it won't." Maya studied his face in the soft lamplight. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her, because when she spoke again, her voice held a note of hope he hadn't heard in years. Then, "Let's try," she said simply. "Let's really try." That night, lying in the guest room listening to the gentle sounds of his family sleeping down the hall, Evan felt a peace he'd never experienced before. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, tantrums and spilled juice, and the million small crises that made up life with small children. But he'd be there for all of it, present and accounted for, exactly where he belonged. For the first time in his adult life, Evan Hale was exactly where he wanted to be. 3 weeks later, Evan found himself sitting across from Dr. Sarah Chen in her warm, book-lined office, Maya beside him on the comfortable couch. Between them sat a box of tissues and 2 cups of coffee that had grown cold while they talked. Noah and Nia were at Aunt Dell's for the afternoon, building gingerbread houses and being thoroughly spoiled, which gave the adults time to work on the harder conversations. "So you've been living together for almost a month now," Dr. Chen said, her voice gentle but direct. "How has that transition felt for everyone?" "Good," Maya said carefully. "Better than I expected, actually. The children have adjusted well, and Evan's been consistent." "Consistent how?" "He shows up," Maya said simply. "Every morning, every pickup, every bedtime. When he says he'll be somewhere, he's there." "Doctor." Chen turned to Evan. "And for you, how has this arrangement felt?" "Like coming home," Evan said without hesitation, "but also humbling. I didn't realize how much I didn't know about day-to-day parenting. Maya's been incredibly patient with my learning curve." "What's been the biggest adjustment?" Evan thought for a moment. "Putting their needs first, automatically. In business, I'm used to weighing options, calculating costs and benefits. But when Nia wakes up with a nightmare or Noah needs help with something, there's no calculation. You just respond." "That's a good insight, Doctor," Chen said. "Maya, how does it feel to share those responsibilities now?" Maya was quiet for a long moment. "Scary," she admitted finally. "For 4 years, I've been the only one making decisions about their welfare, the only one they could count on. Letting someone else into that space feels like giving up control. But also relief," Maya said softly. "Last Tuesday, Noah had a meltdown at the grocery store because they'd moved the cereal to a different aisle. In the past, I would have handled it alone, dealt with the stares, the judgment, the stress. But Evan was there, and he just took Noah outside to calm down while I finished shopping. We handled it as a team. How did that feel? Like maybe I don't have to carry everything by myself anymore." Dr. Chen made a note. "Evan, you mentioned earlier that you and Maya were married before. Can you tell me what went wrong the first time?" The question hit like a physical blow, even though Evan had known it was coming. "I was selfish," he said quietly. "I thought love was enough, that good intentions could substitute for actually showing up. When things got difficult, when Maya needed more support, when we disagreed about priorities, I chose my pride over fighting for us. Can you be more specific?" Evan glanced at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. "We were trying to have a baby. It took longer than we expected, and the process was emotionally exhausting for both of us. Instead of supporting Maya through it, I threw myself into work. I told myself I was building our future, but really I was just avoiding the hard conversations. And when you found out Maya was pregnant, I didn't know," Evan said, his voice thick with regret. "By the time she found out, we were already separated. She tried to reach me, but I'd changed my number, closed myself off. I was too proud and too hurt to make it easy for her to find me." Dr. Chen turned to Maya. "How did that feel, being pregnant and unable to reach him?" "Like abandonment," Maya said simply. "Like everything I'd feared about depending on someone else had come true. So I decided not to depend on anyone." "But you let him back into your life recently. What changed?" Maya looked at Evan, her expression soft. "He changed. When I saw him with the children that first day at the playground, I could see he was different, more present, more willing to be vulnerable. Evan, what do you think changed in you?" "Meeting them," Evan said without hesitation. "Looking into those little faces and realizing I'd missed 4 years of their lives because I was too stubborn to fight for what mattered. I never want to feel that regret again." "That's a powerful motivation," Dr. Chen said. "But what happens when the novelty wears off? When parenting becomes routine rather than exciting?" "Then I show up anyway," Evan said, "because that's what parents do. They show up even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when they'd rather be somewhere else." Dr. Chen smiled slightly. "Good answer. Now, let's talk about the challenges you're facing. Maya, What concerns you most about this arrangement? Trust, Maya said immediately. I want to trust that this is permanent, that Evan won't decide this life is too complicated or demanding and walk away. But I'm scared to fully believe it. What would help you build that trust? Time, Maya said. Consistency, over months, not weeks. Seeing how he handles the really difficult moments, sick kids, financial stress, family disagreements. Evan, how do you respond to that? I understand it completely, Evan said. I broke her trust once. It's my job to rebuild it, however long that takes. What about co-parenting decisions? How do you handle disagreements? Maya and Evan exchanged glances. We're still figuring that out, Maya admitted. Last week, we disagreed about screen time limits. Evan thought our rules were too strict. How did you resolve it? We didn't fight about it in front of the kids, Evan said. We talked privately, and I realized Maya's rules weren't arbitrary. They were based on 4 years of knowing what works for Noah and Naya specifically. So you deferred to her judgment? This time, yes. But we also agreed to revisit it in a few months, when I've had more time to observe their patterns myself. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. That's excellent conflict resolution. You prioritized the children's stability while also leaving room for Evan's input as he becomes more experienced. What about the romantic aspect of your relationship? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Evan felt Maya tense slightly beside him. We're taking that slowly, Maya said carefully. Right now we're focused on being good co-parents. But there are still feelings there, Dr. Chen observed. Yes, Evan said quietly. I never stopped loving Maya, but I understand that love isn't enough by itself. Trust has to come first. Maya, I love him too, Maya admitted, so softly Evan almost missed it. But I'm terrified of what happens if we try again and it doesn't work. The children are attached to him now, if he leaves again. You're protecting not just yourself, but them, Dr. Chen said gently. Yes. Evan, how does it feel to hear that Maya still has doubts about your commitment? It hurts, Evan said honestly, but it also motivates me. Every day I get the chance to show her that this time is different. Every day I don't leave is proof that I won't. What does your ideal future look like? Both of you, Evan answered first. A real family. Marriage, maybe more children if Maya wants them. Growing old together, watching Noah and Nia graduate and have families of their own. Building something that lasts. Maya? The same thing, she said softly. But it scares me how much I want it. Why does it scare you? Because wanting it too much makes it harder to protect myself. And I have to protect myself, for the children's sake. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. Maya, what would have to happen for you to feel safe enough to want those things openly? Maya thought for a long time before answering. Seeing him handle a real crisis. Seeing him choose us, overwork when it really matters. Seeing him be patient with me when I'm not at my best. Those are reasonable benchmarks, Dr. Chen said. Evan, how do you feel about those criteria? Like, I want the chance to meet them, he said simply. As the session wound down, Dr. Chen gave them homework, weekly check-ins about co-parenting decisions, a shared calendar for tracking family commitments, and most importantly, a commitment to bringing problems to these sessions rather than letting resentments build. You're doing well, she told them as they gathered their coats. Better than many couples who've been together continuously. The foundation of respect and shared love for your children is strong. Build on that. Walking to their cars afterward, Maya was unusually quiet. It wasn't until they reached the parking lot that she spoke. Do you really mean it? About more children? The question surprised Evan with its vulnerability. If it's what you want, yes, absolutely. I'm 31, Maya said. If we're going to have more kids, we can't wait forever. Maya. Evan stopped walking and turned to face her. Are you saying you want more children? I'm saying I've always wanted a big family, but I was too scared to admit it, even to myself. Raising Noah and Naya alone felt overwhelming enough. The idea of more children seemed impossible. And now? Now I'm starting to think maybe it's not impossible. Maybe with the right partner, with someone who's really committed to being a father. She trailed off, but the hope in her voice was unmistakable. I'm that someone, Evan said firmly. Whatever you want, more children, a bigger house, A wedding, whatever makes you happy, I'm in. Maya smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, it was completely unguarded. Ask me again in 6 months, she said. When you've survived your first stomach flu outbreak and your first parent-teacher conference and your first time dealing with me when I'm really stressed about something, I'm looking forward to all of a life. It, Evan said, meaning every word. That evening, they picked up Noah and Nia from Aunt Dell's to find both children sugar-crashed and cranky, their gingerbread houses more eaten than built. Dell herself looked tired but happy, her apron dusted with flour and her kitchen showing signs of the afternoon's creative destruction. They were angels, Dell said, though the state of her kitchen suggested otherwise. Mostly. Nia might have licked all the icing off her house before trying to build with it. I was testing it, Nia said with dignity, though her face was still sticky with evidence. Of course you were, Maya said, hiding a smile. What did you think? Good icing? Very good icing, Nia confirmed, but not good glue. The drive home was quiet, both children exhausted from their afternoon of concentrated sugar consumption and creative expression. Noah dozed in his car seat while Nia stared out the window with the glazed expression of a child, coming down from a sugar high. At home, they moved through the evening routine with practiced efficiency baths to remove gingerbread remnants, dinner that neither child really wanted after their afternoon of treats, and an early bedtime for two very tired little people. No story tonight, Maya said gently as she tucked Nia into bed. Just sleep. But what if I can't sleep? Nia asked, suddenly worried. Then you lie very still and think about nice things, Evan said, smoothing her hair back, like dragons, or flowers, or that really good icing you tested today. Will you check on me if I have scary dreams? Of course. Both Mama and I will be right here. In Noah's room, they found him already half asleep, his hair still damp from his bath, and his favorite stuffed dog tucked under one arm. Good day? Evan asked softly. Noah mumbled. Aunt Dell said I'm a good helper. I cleaned up the flour. You're the best helper, Maya agreed, pressing a kiss to his forehead. Sleep well, sweet boy. In the living room afterward, they collapsed onto the couch with matching sighs of exhaustion. Sugar crashes are brutal, Maya said, rubbing her temples. Dell means well, but she doesn't have to deal with the aftermath. They'll sleep well tonight, though, Evan pointed out. True, and they had fun. That's worth a little crankiness. They sat in comfortable quiet for a while, the apartment peaceful around them. Outside, the November wind rustled the last leaves on the trees, and inside, their children slept safely in their beds. Evan? Maya's voice was soft in the lamplight. Thank you. For today, for the therapy session, for all of it. I know this isn't easy, learning to be part of a family, dealing with my trust issues, all the complicated emotions. Thank you for letting me try, he said simply. For giving me the chance to be the father they deserve and the partner you need. I'm starting to believe you might actually be both those things. I am both those things, Evan said, with quiet confidence. It just took me a while to figure out how to show it. Maya curled up against his side, her head on his shoulder, in a gesture that felt both familiar and new. Ask me again in 6 months, she repeated softly. Ask you what? About forever? About marriage and more babies and growing old together? Ask me when you've seen me at my worst and stayed anyway. Evan wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the lingering sweetness of the children's bath soap on her clothes. I'll ask you every day if you want me to, he said, until you're ready to say yes. Every day might be excessive, Maya said with a laugh that he felt against his chest. Maybe just the important days then. Birthdays and holidays and random Tuesdays when I'm feeling particularly grateful. I can live with random Tuesdays. They stayed like that until Maya's breathing evened out and he realized she'd fallen asleep in his arms. For a moment, Evan considered waking her, suggesting they both head to their respective beds. Instead, he reached for the throw blanket on the back of the couch and settled it over both of them. He wasn't ready for this moment to end Maya, trusting him enough to fall asleep in his arms, the quiet house around them, the knowledge that down the hall 2 beautiful children slept safely because he and Maya were there to protect them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove himself worthy of this gift. But tonight, He was exactly where he belonged, home with his family, holding the woman he loved while their children dreamed of dragons and gingerbread and all the magic that filled their small, perfect world. For the first time in his life, Evan Hale had everything he'd ever really wanted, and he wasn't going to waste a single moment of it. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a rhythm that felt both new and timeless. Evan officially moved into Maya's apartment, transforming the guest room into a proper shared space while respecting the fact that Maya wasn't ready for them to share a bed again yet. The children adapted to having him there permanently, with the resilience that seemed to be their superpower. Naya appointed herself his morning alarm clock, appearing at his bedside each day at exactly 6:30 to inform him that breakfast doesn't make itself. Noah showed his acceptance more quietly, but Evan treasured the moment each evening when the little boy would appear with a book and simply say, "Story time?" Work required significant restructuring. Evan promoted his most trusted employee to partner, delegated major client relationships, and instituted a strict policy of no calls after 7 p.m. or before 8 a.m. His assistant initially panicked at the changes, certain that business would suffer. Instead, something interesting happened. With clearer boundaries and more focused attention during work hours, Evan found himself more productive than ever. Clients respected his professionalism, and his team stepped up to fill the gaps, growing in confidence and capability. Daddy's new job is being a daddy, Nia announced to anyone who would listen, and while it wasn't technically accurate, Evan couldn't argue with the sentiment. The real test came in December, during what Maya would later refer to as the week everything went wrong at once. It started on a Monday, when Noah woke up with a fever and the telltale flush of illness. By Tuesday, Naya was sick too, and Maya was fighting off whatever bug had invaded their household. Wednesday brought news that Aunt Dell had fallen and sprained her ankle, leaving the cafe short-staffed during their busiest season. Thursday morning, Evan's biggest client called an emergency meeting to discuss a potential contract worth more than his annual salary. The meeting was scheduled for that afternoon, the same time Maya had a doctor's appointment she couldn't reschedule, and both children were still too sick for school. The old Evan would have agonized over the decision, would have tried to find a way to attend the meeting while juggling family responsibilities. Instead, Evan called his partner without hesitation. "I need you to handle the Morrison meeting," he told Priya. "Family emergency. Evan, that's our biggest contract this year. Morrison specifically asked for you. Then explain that my children are sick and I'm needed at home. If that's not acceptable to Morrison, then maybe he's not the kind of client we want." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Are you sure about this?" "Completely sure. You know the project as well as I do, and you're better with difficult clients anyway. Make the presentation, negotiate the terms, and text me if you need anything." When Evan hung up, he found Maya standing in the doorway, her face pale with exhaustion and something that looked like amazement. "You just walked away from how much money?" "I didn't walk away from anything," Evan said simply. "I chose what matters most. How are you feeling? You look like you should be in bed." "I feel terrible, but I can't get sick." The kids need you to rest so you don't make yourself worse," Evan interrupted gently. "Go back to bed." "I've got everything handled." Maya opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to really look at him at the way he was already reaching for the thermometer to check on Noah, the way he'd moved naturally into caregiver mode without needing instruction. "Okay," she said quietly, "but if they need anything, I'll wake you up. I promise." The next 12 hours tested every parenting skill Evan had learned over the past months. Noah ran a fever that had them both worried, requiring careful monitoring and regular medication doses. Naya was clingy and miserable, wanting constant comfort but too congested to sleep well. Maya tried to help but was clearly fighting her own illness, and by afternoon Evan had convinced her to stay in bed. That evening, when both children were finally sleeping peacefully and their fevers had broken, Evan sat in the darkened living room with a cup of tea and checked his phone. 3 missed calls from work, a dozen text messages, and an email from Priya with the subject line, "We got the contract." He read her enthusiastic message describing how she'd not only secured Morrison's business, but had actually improved the terms Evan had originally proposed. Morrison had been impressed by Evan's priorities, she reported, calling him a man who has his life in proper perspective. Evan smiled and put his phone aside without responding to any of the other messages. Tomorrow would be soon enough to deal with work. Tonight, his family needed him to be present and available. Maya appeared in the doorway, looking better but still pale. "How are they?" "Both fevers broke around 6. They've been sleeping for 2 hours. How are you feeling?" "Better. Tired, but better." She settled onto the flong, couch beside him, her movements careful and exhausted. "I heard your phone buzzing. Everything okay at work?" "More than okay. Priya landed the Morrison contract and apparently did a better job than I would have." Maya stared at him. "You're not upset that you missed it?" "Maya, 3 days ago my daughter had a fever of 103. Today my son couldn't breathe through his nose and you could barely stand up. Where exactly was I supposed to be other than right here?" Something shifted in Maya's expression, the last wall of protective doubt crumbling away. "You really mean that?" "I mean that completely." Maya was quiet for a long time, curled up against his side while they listened to the peaceful sounds of their children sleeping safely down the hall. "Ask me," she said finally. "You know what?" Evan's heart began to race. "Maya Carter, will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and the father of your children and whatever you need me to be for the rest of our lives?" "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it." They made love that night for the first time in 5 years, gentle and careful and full of the deep intimacy of two people who had found their way back to each other through forgiveness and patience and the transformative power of putting love into action every single day. Later, as Maya slept in his arms in what was now truly their bed, Evan thought about the long journey that had brought them here. The mistakes and regrets, the years of separation, the careful rebuilding of trust brick by brick. Tomorrow they would tell the children that Mama and Daddy were getting married. There would be excited planning and flower girl dresses and the sweet chaos of a family wedding. There would be more challenges too, disagreements and difficult moments, and all the ordinary struggles of building a life together. But tonight, Evan held his sleeping wife in their shared bed, listened to his children breathing peacefully down the hall, and felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had finally learned what it meant to be exactly where he belonged. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, the first of the season. Inside, their home was warm and safe and full of the quiet contentment that came from love lived daily in 1,000 small acts of care and commitment. Evan Hale had everything he'd ever really wanted, and this time he was going to keep it.